All right, guys, we're back here on the Marvel Movie Podcast. Days removed from the release of Avengers Endgame from this past Friday. The wait is finally over. Avengers is in theaters now. Before we go any further, I should obviously mention this. It's going to be in the title of the video, but if you haven't already figured it out, this video movie review will feature spoilers from Endgame. So if you haven't already seen the movie, first of all, what the hell is wrong with you? Second of all, click away right now, save the video for later. We're talking all things Endgame here in the video. I got the chance to see the movie on Thursday. I didn't have the issue of having to avoid all the spoilers, which we all kind of had to deal with in the months leading up to this movie, because I cannot tell you how many websites, articles I've come across saying, oh, this is going to happen, or that's going to happen, or this was filmed, or this person's going to appear, and I completely forgot all about that as soon as I walked in the theater and sat down to watch this movie. Jamie, unfortunately, you had to wait until Sunday to watch it, so you had to kind of do a better job of avoiding all the spoilers before I finally got to sit down to and see it and enjoy it.
I did, yeah, and as we discussed right before we had began recording, is that I'm so used to going through just posts like on Facebook and Twitter and like whatever else, and going through the comment sections on things that I like, and I had to change that habit real quick this weekend because there's going to be that one guy, there's going to be that one jackass that's going to say something, and because of that new top fan feature on Facebook now, it's going to be someone who's a top fan and is going to say, oh, this happened, and but luckily I was able to avoid the minefield and made it to the other side and got to see I don't even know the words to describe this film. I don't saying it was fantastic is kind of an understatement, I think.
Absolutely, I think masterpiece can be used to describe this movie. Fantastic, surreal, emotional. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. We're going to break down all of our thoughts, 2 cents on the movie over the course of this review here. But you're absolutely right, though. This is a movie that you do not want spoiled. If you find out a big plot point before you go see it, it's not going to ruin the experience, but it's all a part of the experience, finding out all these things with everyone else that you're seeing the movie with, whether it be for the first time, second time, 10th time, whatever it might be. This is a movie you need to see multiple times to truly not just appreciate it, but also pick up on things that you may have missed the first time in a 3-hour movie, which obviously you and I, Jamie, have experience with that from watching Raw over the years. Did not feel like that long at all. I mean, no movies are past 3 hours nowadays,
it flew completely by.
Mm-hmm.
And once we got to the end credits, I was thinking my God, that was 3 hours?
Exactly.
Raw be like this every week.
I know, exactly. It flew by like it was 5 minutes. Never once had to check my watch. Unlike with Raw or like WrestleMania, it's like, when is this shit gonna end? But it was WrestleMania in the matter of 3 hours with all the payoffs that we got here, all the satisfying moments, the returns. It was just pure excellence from start to finish. But I actually had, what was it, The Force Awakens ruined for me when that movie first came out years ago. Someone actually, I don't know if it was a tweet or I think I had posted on Facebook, hey, going to see the movie tonight. And I mean, it was on a Friday, and obviously it had been released worldwide on Thursday night. So some jackass who had seen the movie replied to either my tweet or Facebook, whatever it was, with the picture of Han Solo saying, spoiler, he dies in the movie. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah,
and I feel like that was partially my own fault, too.
For me, I'm not the biggest Star Wars guy out there. I might have seen 1 or 2 of the films. I know, christen me now, I'm the worst person ever. But yeah, to spoil something like that, that's just, that's probably the biggest moment in the entire franchise, I guess, of course, if you want to, or either that or just second to, Darth Vader, that famous line,
mm-hmm.
Luke, I am your father, so.
No, exactly. Imagine if we had the internet. I mean, obviously we weren't around back then, but imagine if we had the internet back in like the early 80s, late 70s when The Empire Strikes Back came out and people were tweeting online, "Oh, he's actually Luke's father. Holy shit." Like, "Oh, spoiler alert, fuck all the fans, blah blah blah." I couldn't even imagine the reaction of that if we had something like that.
Geez.
30 years ago. But the equivalent to that with this movie would be, of course, Iron Man dying. And it would have been very simple. You had mentioned before we went live here how someone that you follow had changed their profile picture to Iron Man with the Infinity Gauntlet on, which is at the very tail end of the movie.
Exactly.
Which is a ballsy move.
And I won't mention the person's name, Dave. Yeah, that, I mean, again, like, it is Monday, or at least that is the day that we are recording this on. It is the Monday after Endgame. It's been out for barely a week, and this weekend, I'd say you were safe in the first weekend. It's Monday. It's the new week. This is where, like, if you're not ready for seeing it until like later on this week, or heaven forbid you're waiting even longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck to you, my friend, because you're going to need it. You better strap on whatever kind of gear you got, because you're going to need it.
Absolutely. I would say that you're still a dick if you're spoiling it for others on social media, like this week as we're recording, but it's a bit more understandable than like the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I feel like after everyone's gotten a chance to see it on Sunday, then there's kind of like, okay, you may be able to talk about it, but it's not, you're still kind of a dick if you do. I haven't seen a lot of people spoil the movie on my timeline over the last, 6 or 7 hours on Monday here as we speak, which is cool. But, this is a movie you do not want spoiled for you, especially if you're one of those people that loved Infinity War, that's been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe since the beginning in 2008. And speaking of Infinity War, of course, Jamie, I got to introduce you here. I kind of threw you right under the, right into the fucking fire here with this podcast, but obviously...
you just threw me under the bus here. I didn't get a big introduction, like... My chopped liver over here?
No, exactly, Jamie. You deserve a proper introduction here for all the times we've talked. You're on the phone on WrestleRant, hashtag this, whatever. But yeah, today we're talking Avengers Endgame, and you were here with me last year, almost about a year ago, reviewing Infinity War, and we talked all about that movie. I think we did it for WrestleRant Radio, put up the full clip on the YouTube channel, so it's available for those who have yet to hear it. But we talked for a solid 30 minutes about Infinity War, and we both know our thoughts on that movie. It was one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think Endgame, in short here, real quick, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the entire movie, was absolutely phenomenal. So we're going to talk about that. But Jamie, you're on the Twitter machine at Jamie Lee Mack. You have not been following, a lot like myself, the MCU since the beginning. So I know we talked about it in our Infinity War review. So before we get started here, kind of give your background as a Marvel, MCU fan here as we get started.
I was not introduced to the MCU. I mean, obviously I was aware that, Iron Man 1 had come out and Captain America, the first Avenger, had been out and everything else. But I did not get into MCU until the Avengers, the first one that came out in 2012. I remember I went with some friends of mine from work. I had been a little bit familiar with, who everyone was. Obviously, if you think of Iron Man, you think of, the yellowish, reddish suit that he has on. Obviously, if you think of Captain America, he's got the shield and everything. So you knew who everyone was. But did I know of any of the stories? Did I know about the Infinity Stones? Any of that kind of stuff? Absolutely not. And I went and I saw the first Avengers movie, and I pretty much fell in love right there from day one. Now, have I seen every single film since the first Avengers movie? No. I'll be the first one to admit I have not. But I understand it enough that just how emotional Endgame was. And for me, this is coming from someone who hasn't seen every single of the 22 films, I believe.
22, yep.
I think in the entire MCU, yeah. And I felt every single emotion. I felt every single hit. I felt bad that I didn't, or that I wasn't sobbing at the end of it. I feel that And I feel the reason why I wasn't was because my theater sucked.
Yeah, I saw you tweet that. Yeah, what is?
Me, my girlfriend, and my best friend were the only ones that were active. Were the only ones that were into it, and like maybe one other person. But like, I feel like if I was in a more alive group, I feel like I would have, or that like I would have visually been more torn up. No, not really torn up, but like looked more visibly like emotional about everything. But yeah, but now that I've seen Endgame, of course, what do I got to do now? I got to go back and see the other ones. I got to go back and watch.
Exactly.
And of course, Netflix right now, at least in Canada, is very weird with what they have. They have Iron Man 2. They don't have one or three. They have Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Black Panther, and I think that's it.
They don't have Ragnarok? We're in Canada?
No, they don't.
That's bizarre. I think we still have Ragnarok on Netflix here in the States. I know we have Black Panther still.
Yes, we do actually.
Ragnarok.
Yes.
Okay.
Civil War was what I was thinking of, but no.
Yeah, they took that. That was on there. They took it off.
And the other ones that I just mentioned, and I believe that's it.
Well, okay, so at least they get Iron Man 2, but that is weird. They don't have the first one or the third one, probably knowing that they're the better movies, so they don't want to pay for them or whatever. I'm not exactly sure, but...
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? With the Disney Plus service coming out pretty soon, like, I can see why. And, like, oh my God, when that... anyone who is seeing... Like this is for anyone who is just seeing Endgame and hasn't watched the other ones. First off, you're nuts. Second of all, when Disney Plus launches, that's going to be your best friend. Just saying.
I think as far as I understand, because I was looking into that the other day, because I had read that Endgame was going to be available on Disney Plus when it launches, I think in November. That, Toy Story, all the big movies coming out this year from Disney, I think are going to be available at launch on Disney Plus, which is fucking amazing.
Captain Marvel will be. I know that. I know that was one of the big ones.
Yeah, Captain Marvel too. Yeah, I honestly completely forgot about that with Endgame coming out this past weekend, but that was a good movie too. I know they had put like a list of movies up, at least on the website that I had read, of all the movies they'll have at launch. And I don't think the only Marvel movie I had seen on there was like Thor 2. So, because I was wondering, like, will all the Marvel movies be on there? And maybe they will be. They just didn't specify that in the press release that I had read. I'm not sure.
I imagine they will be, but I think for right now, Netflix just owns the rights to a few of them. Like, obviously, like, if Captain Marvel is going to be available at launch, and that tells me that Netflix will not have the rights to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, how long do they have the rights for it? Who knows? Like, Netflix doesn't really release any numbers. So, but yeah, like I would say eventually they'll have them all up there. It's the same thing when the WWE Network launched. They didn't have every Raw up there. They didn't have every SmackDown up there. And, just give them time. Eventually Disney Plus will be like the almighty service to have.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the stuff that they own and that they already are going to have on the network from the get-go, from, like, Boy Meets World, they have, like, everything. Every season of The Simpsons, which I personally don't really care about, but, like, it's an option to watch if you wanted to. The Marvel stuff, the shows, everything, the movies, everything from Toy Story up until, like I said, Thor 2 and everything else in between, the Star Wars stuff. So, for $6.99, too, is an amazing deal.
Oh, it's crazy. You'd be stupid not to have it.
Is it going to be more for your, like, does it translate to being more for you guys in Canada or no?
Chances are it probably will be a little bit more because our dollar right now is for lack of a better word, shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think right now, I think you guys probably make like 25 to 30 cents on our dollar.
Oh, okay.
So I imagine, if anything, it'll probably be like $9.99, like, maybe it'll be like the same as the network, but which is, completely fine with me because I refuse to pay for cable. So,
No, I totally agree. This will be your version of cable. I mean, there's really no need to pay for anything else if you have everything that will be available on this service from the get-go. But going back to Endgame here for a second, I totally forgot what we were talking about because we were talking about Disney Plus, which is an amazing deal, but there's so much to break down here. I'm surprised. Maybe this is just me stereotyping, Jamie, but having watched wrestling now and seen every Raw that you guys get in Canada, I mean, not specifically where you live, Jamie, but like anywhere in Canada, the shows are almost always awesome because your crowds are great. So maybe this is me stereotyping, but I would imagine that the crowd that you saw the movie for or saw the movie with would have been awesome and not like Corpus Christi.
Yeah, exactly. Well, see, I think the reason being was one, it was on a Sunday. And number two, we went in the morning. We didn't go at night.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just because, like, we thought that, like, you know, like, damn near every showing we tried to find was either sold out or close to being sold out, and the only seats left were in the front. And I'll be damned if I have to sit in the front with my neck cranked for 3 hours. No thanks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love the Avengers. Don't get me wrong, but I don't love them enough to, you know, have a friggin' neck or to have like a sore neck for the next 2 weeks after that.
I went to go see it at an AMC theater, and the website was down when the tickets first went on sale. Like, this is before WrestleMania. This is back on like April 2nd or 3rd or whatever, and there were showtimes up until 3 a.m., which is amazing because theaters aren't usually open that late, if ever. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, really.
But that was the case with Endgame, and there were showtimes at 6, 7, 8, 9, not just those times, but like 6:15 and 9:45, blah, blah, blah. There were like at least 10 showtimes, and the only seats available were in the very front row for every showtime, and I'm like you said, Jamie, I love the Avengers, but I'm not breaking my neck for this movie. I want to be able to enjoy it and not walk out in a body cast. So
Exactly. Like, you know, I don't want to walk out thinking like, man, that was a great movie, but, you know, my experience kind of sucked.
yeah, exactly. It's all about the experience, especially with a movie like this.
Like, that's why I still get together with my friends to watch pay-per-views. I just like it for the food.
Exactly. Can't go wrong with the food. Especially with a movie like this. Got to come prepared. The pay-per-views, hey, the actual content may suck, but at least you have the food, you got the family, you got the friends. It all works out in the end. Thankfully, Endgame has the content too, because the content itself was amazing. So like you said, Jamie, your overall thoughts in the movie before we start asking questions and giving our thoughts on certain things. What was your reaction coming out of Avengers Endgame on Sunday?
If you are a comic book fan of any kind and you don't go see Endgame, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the best way I can put it. I thought that it was a perfect way to wrap everything up. And I remember everyone thinking, or like when the runtime was announced, thinking like, oh my God, it's gonna be like 3 hours, and like. My local, the local radio stations around here, I believe on that Thursday were talking about like, you know, hey, Avengers Endgame opens up, and like they put up a poll saying like, are you going to watch all 3 hours? And of course, there's like an overwhelming no, because it's a bunch of middle-aged people that that hate everything, and like, you know. When it was announced that it was going to be 3 hours, I was like, can it be 4?
Yeah, right.
But, you know, I'm actually asking for more here. I'm like, 3 hours. I'm like, wow. Okay, all right. I'll give them that. And, but it was fantastic. It's one of the rare films that I give it a full 10 out of 10, honestly. Not many films do that with me, but... yeah, this one's getting a full A++ for me.
It absolutely has to. I mean, I said this right as I walked out of the theater on Thursday, and I'm a big Back to the Future guy. It's my favorite movie of all time. The fact that they referenced Back to the Future alone in this movie multiple times made it my second favorite movie of all time, beating out Ghostbusters, which has held that spot for me for at least 15 years, which is saying a lot. That's how great Endgame was. Not even Infinity War had the luxury for me of beating Ghostbusters, and I loved Infinity War, and we talked about that at length last year. But like you said, with 3 hours, I feel there were the only real nitpicks that I've seen of the movie that people have, talked to me about and texted me about and whatever was the pacing of the movie. I didn't really see that as an issue. I thought it was okay.
No, me neither.
I was never bored. Like I said, never looked at my watch once, and I saw it at 10:45 on Thursday. I left at 2 a.m. It was a long movie, but I loved every second. And I felt like every person on the screen got an equal amount of screen time, and everyone was, not everybody, but like some people came back in the final 20 minutes, obviously. But you can't develop everybody in 3 hours, especially when you have that many characters in one movie. I think that's what kind of Infinity War was for. Now I understand why people were calling that, before they even called it Endgame, because years ago they were calling it Infinity War Part 1, and then Part 2 was going to be this one, because it really is the same movie.
I just want to take credit by saying last year I thought it was going to be called Infinity's End. The word end is in the title. So I get partial points.
You do get that. You do get that, Jamie. That is absolutely yours to claim. That's a great title, too. Infinity's End would have been a great title. I've seen other people suggest other things, but in the end, no pun intended, I think Endgame was a great title for the movie, because Age of Ultron, which honestly I completely forgot about. We're not doing a complete retrospective of the MCU here, but I went back and watched Age of Ultron.
Which is an underrated film.
It is. Honestly, it is, because at the time,
Ultron doesn't get enough credit.
I thought it was a very good movie, a great movie, not as good as the first one. And I would still say, like, I've seen people tweet this weekend, like, oh, one's got to go, and it's like obviously all 4 Avengers films, and Ultron I think would have to go because the other ones are better. But that being said, if you watch back Ultron, if there's any one movie to rewatch before you go see this one, in addition to Infinity War, of course, it's Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron sets up so much shit in this movie, between the stuff with Iron Man, Thor, even Captain America finally getting his dance with Peggy Carter at the end of the movie. Age of Ultron sets up so much shit to the point where they even say the words Endgame. Iron Man does, Tony Stark does, and Captain America saying, we'll lose, and all this other stuff. It's such an important movie in the MCU when you really look back at it.
One of the best ones to go and see before you go and watch the Endgame would be Ultron, because one of the lines in there is when Tony Stark is talking with Bruce Banner, and he said, that up there, that's the Endgame.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
He was right.
And he was not wrong. Even 4 years ago, he was right on the money. And again, it must be one of those things where they planned it out so far in advance. But it's really incredible when you think about it, considering how long ago that was. That was 4 years ago. And they've been building to this, really not only since Age of Ultron, but like the first Avengers. And even further back than that, the first Iron Man movie. And, it's just one of those things where you kind of have to go back and watch every movie to really appreciate Endgame. But even like the movies that you haven't seen, like I haven't seen, to be honest with you, I have not seen in full anyway, the first Thor and the second Thor, but I know enough about the movies, like you had said, Jamie, for yourself, that I know, like the ether was in Thor 2, and that's what they're going back to get. Like, I totally understand that. It makes sense. And if you're going in this thing cold, and again, that might be the only other nitpick of this movie, is that for people who may not be superhero fans, because people sometimes go to see movies based off the buzz, like, oh, it made a lot of money, it's got a big, great score on Cinema Score or whatever, it's got an A+, I'll go see it. If they have not seen any Marvel movie, which is very hard to believe, if you're going to see this movie, you've likely already seen at least Iron Man, if nothing else, then you're going to be confused. You're going to have no idea what's going on. The time travel shit, it just kind of confuses and complicates matters even more, but it makes sense if you've been following the MCU for any period of time. So definitely watch Age of Ultron. I would say Civil War 2, of course Infinity War, really all the major Avengers movies, I would say, kind of come into play here at various points.
Another good one, though, would be Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yes.
For the post-credit scene.
Yes,
really
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah, if only for the post-credit scene and how it kind of leads immediately into this movie. Oddly enough, I think the only movie that doesn't really tie into this movie at all is like even Doctor Strange, like with the Ancient One showing up in this movie. You have to kind of watch. You don't have to, but it makes more sense, and you like the cameo more if you've seen Doctor Strange. Winter Soldier too. Winter Soldier, amazing movie. That one scene in Endgame where he was like, Hail Hydra, in the elevator, Captain America was. That was big pop from me. Big pop. I was like, that's fucking
amazing.
Fucking amazing. What a moment. That was great. Like I said, the only movie I think doesn't really factor into Endgame at all, I would say, is Black Panther. Like, you have to be familiar with the characters, but if you haven't seen his movie, it doesn't really factor into anything in this movie because they're not in Wakanda,
yeah,
you know?
It doesn't really set up a whole lot. I mean, if you just want, or like, you know, a lot of these, like, other, I mean, they're not spin-off titles by any means, but, like, all of these other solo titles, like, you know, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, like, basically, like, those are just to introduce you to who they are, to who Stephen Strange is, to who Black Panther is. I can't remember his name for the life of me.
Yeah, Dr. Stephen Strange that we're talking about?
Well, there's him, and then there's Black Panther's name.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Is it T'Challa? Something T'Challa?
Something like that, yeah.
I think so, yeah. But, yeah, no, they're absolutely all used to introduce the characters in the movie, kind of get you familiar with who they are, what they're about, and care more when they die, or quote-unquote die, in Infinity War before they're reintroduced in this movie. But, yeah, there were a lot of, there were a lot of moments in this movie where I was like, holy shit. Like, they got a big pop out of me. The Hail Hydra scene was one of them. Going back to Thor 2, I thought was pretty cool. Again, I hadn't seen Thor 2, but him getting to interact with his mom was really cool. Thor, I gotta ask you about this real quick, Jamie, because I've seen conflicting opinions on this. People were saying, oh, Thor looked like shit in this movie. I mean, not literally, of course he did, that was the point. But, like, he didn't come across as big of a badass as he did in Infinity War, which is accurate. But he got his time to shine in that movie. I think he was perfectly portrayed the way he was in Endgame, at least in my opinion.
I think Thor was portrayed the way that he should have been. And the reason why is because, well, think of it like this. Say you had a mission in life, or you had a goal. Ultimately, Thor's goal in Infinity War was to kill Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
And you get so close to that goal. You get so close to getting that mission accomplished, and you're right there. It's right there in your grasp. And you don't get the job done. Something happens, like, you know, you miss your target, whatever it may be. And it was the only thing that you ever wanted to get done. It's the only thing you ever wanted to do. And you didn't do it. And what happens after that usually? You start to feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
You start to feel like not yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you had your heart set on this. Thor had his heart set on killing Thanos. Thanos killed his brother. Straight up did, and he witnessed it.
Mm-hmm.
Thor wanted revenge, and he had Thanos in the palm of his hand. And Thanos went, you should have went for the head, snapped his fingers, and away everyone went.
Mm-hmm.
Thor felt like he failed. And I don't want to say he fell into like any kind of like deep depression or anything like that, but it does. But like you know, it tackles an issue of where, like, you know, sometimes you get in that state of mind. Sometimes you just tend to not really care anymore, and you start to not really watch what you eat anymore, and you tend not to really take care of yourself, and you kind of I mean, for a lot of people, is you overeat, you gain weight, and you don't really look like yourself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think it tackled a pretty good issue, and honestly, I have no problem with it, and it honestly just adds more to the Thor character. And Chris Hemsworth did an amazing job, and to be honest, I've never related to him more than I ever did in this film.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people who were complaining about it, they read way too much into it. And I mean, like, yes, could he have been portrayed as bigger of a badass, whatever? Yes, I do agree with that. But at the same time, like, you can't be serious all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Thor was pretty damn fun. I think Thor was one of the bigger highlights of this film.
I agree. I absolutely agree. For different reasons than people expected, but I think he was too, yeah.
Yeah. So, me, I don't really have I don't have an issue with it.
I mean, I think obviously Iron Man and Captain America were the cornerstones of this movie. This was really who this movie was focused all about, was Iron Man and Captain America. But you can't forget about the story arc and the evolution specifically of the Thor character, because I haven't seen them start to finish yet, but Thor 1 and Thor 2, part of the reason why I did not give two shits about those movies and why I didn't see them was because the character did nothing for me. Even in Avengers, he was a good character, but not nearly as exciting or as entertaining as the other Avengers, characters in the MCU. Just didn't really feel like you could relate to that character, and you're not going to be able to relate to every superhero because they're a superhero for a reason. But I feel like a lot of people, can relate to Iron Man through his struggles in his movies, and Captain America and how he's not able to live his life until the very end of Endgame and all this other stuff. Thor didn't really feel all that relatable until I would say like Ragnarok, when he showed up and completely underwent this awesome character transformation and became way more, less serious, but more entertaining, funnier, and just way more relatable with what he had to go through. And that continued in Infinity War when he lost his brother and he had nothing to lose, and he talked about that, and he failed once again to beat Thanos, which he's been building to for years now. I thought he was great. I really did think he was great. He provided a lot of the entertainment value in this movie. Him and Rocket were a great duo, as they were in Infinity War. And again, we're jumping all over the place here, but I really hope that the future of the Chris Hemsworth Thor character is with the Guardians and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That would be absolute money.
Yeah, and I feel like he is going to take the place of Gamora, because I'm going to assume that Gamora isn't going to be involved because towards the end, I didn't see her on the ship. It was Peter Quill, Drax, Thor, Rocket, and Groot. I didn't see Gamora, so I'm going to assume that Thor is going to kind of take her spot, which I'm completely fine with.
Yeah, well, I think she could factor into the third one. I could see them making the theme, the story of the third one when it comes out, which is not going to be for a while. It was originally slated for a 2020 release. James Gunn, that he got suspended, that whole thing happened. He got fired, not suspended, was brought back a month ago. And since he got fired from Disney, he signed on to do Suicide Squad 2. So I think he's doing that project, and he has to finish with that before he could start on Guardians, which is not reportedly going to be until like 2021. And that's just when they start production. So I'm not even sure when the movie's going to come out. 2022, 2023, I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
That being said, though, it's not like they're down a female, because they have Nebula, she was on the ship too, and Mantis. And obviously they're not as strong of characters as Gamora is.
Mantis. I keep forgetting about her.
I know, yeah, she's kind of like the forgotten one. She's not really going to do anything. Like, what did she do in the final battle? Like, read people's emotions? Like, she's not really going to...
Yeah, really.
They didn't really show that part, but, they showed Peter at the end of the movie on the ship, searching for Gamora, like on his computer or whatever. So I'm sure that might be the story of the next one. They're going out to find her, or find the present day one, even though she died, or maybe try to convince the 2014 version of Gamora to fall in love with Peter again. Who knows? But it's going to be money to see Thor on screen with Chris Pratt, with Star-Lord for that entire film. And I'm hoping, I know he wasn't on the ship, and this might be like cramming too many characters into one movie, but I'm really hoping for an interaction between Drax and Korg from Ragnarok. I feel like that would be total money.
Oh, that'd be tremendous.
I can't wait. But yeah, I thought they wrote his character off, but I thought they kind of handled his character very well here, and he has the future going forward. I don't know if his contract's up, but even if it is, I can see him re-signing, because he's only really just now getting interesting. It's like being in WWE. It's like Kofi Kingston. He's always been great, but only now is he getting a push, like in the WWE title scene, And so why wouldn't he re-sign? He's the world champion right now. Thor is only now just getting interesting, so why wouldn't he stay on for another couple more movies? I know Mark Ruffalo... go ahead.
I think Chris Hemsworth actually came out and said, like, I'll play Thor as long as they want me to.
Oh, really?
There's no one else that can play him but Chris Hemsworth. No one can.
Mm-hmm. And I know that, obviously Captain America's moved on. Tony Stark died in this movie. Black Widow died. Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye is probably retired because he was retired before, and now he's like actually retired. It's like Shawn Michaels, like he's actually done now, like for real this time. He's not coming back.
Yeah, no,
you know?
He just came back for a 7-figure match, and now he's
yeah, exactly. Now he's actually done. I know they might be making a Disney Plus show on him, so I could see where his future might lie there. So all the original Avengers might be gone, so I could see why Thor would be sticking around. I know Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. I know Mark Ruffalo, I believe, has one more movie on his contract. I don't think they can make a Hulk solo film again. Just from something I read about a year ago where Universal or something owns the rights to it, but they can't make a solo movie on it, but they can include him in other people's movies. Something like that. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I thought, again, he was another, I'm getting all the criticisms out of the way first. I thought, I thought he did a good job here. I thought he kind of played his role well, but I've seen other people say, Hulk should have had a bigger role here. He had a pretty big, story in Infinity War that he was scared of Thanos, at least Hulk was. And then, he never really returned until this movie, which kind of came out of nowhere. He was Professor Hulk almost from the get-go as soon as 2023 came around. And he never really got his revenge on Thanos. I mean, he did bring back everybody by snapping his fingers in the gauntlet, but he never really got that one-on-one confrontation with Thanos that they had been building to from Infinity War. I wasn't too bothered by it, but I could see why other people would be.
Yeah, I mean, I was fine with him, honestly, and really, it did make sense for him to take the blow with the stones and, snapping everyone back because, let's be honest, he was the only one strong enough that could take the hit and still be okay. Obviously we saw what happened with Iron Man and how that ended with him. But yeah, I wasn't too bummed out about it. I mean, I think that's just because I'm not really as invested in the Hulk as I guess other people might be. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Mark Ruffalo is tremendous. I think he plays a better Bruce Banner than oh God, what was the last guy that did it? Edward Norton.
Norton, yeah.
Oh God, I thought he did way better than him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I wasn't incredibly bummed out by it. I mean, it would have been nice to see that kind of get tied up, but his role was to bring everyone back, and that's what he did. I mean, honestly, without him, God damn, half the cast would still be gone.
And they had to have someone die here. They had to have, Captain America technically will die at some point. He's pretty old in age by, the end of this movie with what happened with him, and we'll talk about him in a second. They had to have someone else die, and it was Black Widow. And I'm glad it was her because she's a big character. Obviously, she's been there since the first, even before that. She was there since, I think, Iron Man 2. And so she's been around for a while. She was a very good character, but she wasn't like Iron Man, Captain America level. And they had to have someone die in that scene there in Vormir, and I'm glad it was her, because if it was anyone else, okay, maybe Hawkeye, but I feel like it made more sense for her to die, because she didn't really have any other reason to live, because she didn't have any family or whatever, unlike Hawkeye.
Exactly.
Because by the end of the movie, we were all talking about Tony Stark dying and Iron Man dying, not, Black Widow, which is fine, but it's like if you do two big losses in the same movie, and like Captain America's death was overshadowed, that would have been a way bigger deal, why would they waste it halfway through the movie? I thought Black Widow was honestly perfect for that spot and taking her own life for the betterment of the team. I thought that was very well done.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, for me, Scarlett Johansson is probably my number one Hollywood/celebrity crush. I'll admit it. But yeah, it did make the most sense because she, the only family that she had was the Avengers, and she was willing to die for that family.
Mm-hmm.
Hawkeye did have an actual family. He had a wife. He had children. At the very, very beginning of the movie, completely vanish on him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and obviously the only reason why he was even back is because he wanted his family back. So it wouldn't have made any sense for him to sacrifice himself, even though, of course, there's going to be that little tug of war of no, me, I'll do it. You have so much more to live for. No, I'll do it. Obviously, that had to happen. It made more sense. Black Widow, the Avengers were her family. She died for her. She died for her family. It made sense. And I really, really love Black Widow. And yes, it did suck to see her go, but on the other hand, it did make the most sense.
But she will be back. She will be back, and I'm not saying be brought back to life, which I guess they could do, but it kind of feels cheap if they do. Which brings me to another point.
I really, really hope they don't.
It's
it's the same thing with Tony Stark. I really hope that they don't do some kind of like for lack of a better word, like witchcrafty kind of BS where like, oh look, Tony's back. It's like no. The way he went out, leave it be. Don't touch it. If it's not broken, don't fix it. Just leave it be. Same thing with Black Widow. Don't bring her back. When you sacrifices, I'll come back. And that's just the way it is.
Just leave it the way it is. There's no reason to bring her back. And she was a great character, but like I said, she will be back in the form of another movie, but I assume that will be a prequel, kind of setting up her backstory and everything else, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
And that should be cool. But like you mentioned, bringing people back from the dead, I'm glad they're not doing that. You mentioned Shawn Michaels before. It would feel like that all over again, where you have this amazing send-off for not only just Iron Man, but like him, Black Widow, even Vision from the last movie, Loki, Gamora. Like, they all went out in such a way where it was like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like, I mean, obviously you don't want to see him die. He is technically still alive. I'm talking like present day, but like, yeah, in a different alternate universe, he is still alive through the Tesseract, which I think they could either make that the plot of the show that he has coming out, or they can, I don't know, they'll do something with that, I'm sure. They'll definitely figure out some way to explain that, because that wasn't done for no reason, without explaining it. Like, it'll definitely lead somewhere, which is cool. But, people aren't just going to be brought back, which I'm glad they're not doing. People are like, oh, Vision is going to be brought back, and Loki, at least in present day. I'm glad they're not doing that, because it just would have watered down their deaths. And the people coming back from the snap was going to happen inevitably. But, like, the actual deaths, I'm glad they kept permanent, because that's what made the most sense storyline-wise.
For sure.
So I thought that was perfectly executed. Just this whole thing was absolutely amazing. We'll get to the ending here, and if there's anything else that pops up, we'll definitely talk about it. But the ending here, I thought the whole idea of time travel I thought was cool, but leading to the conclusion of the final fucking battle here. First, we get to Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor all going after Thanos, which was awesome. The three original Avengers, the three first movies to come out in the MCU, all going after Thanos. They fail. Then Captain America wields the hammer, which was teased back in Age of Ultron. Another thing in Age of Ultron that leads back into Endgame.
I lost my fucking mind. Oh my god. I was like, wait, the hammer's moving. And like, I'm thinking like, is Thor using like some other power that he does?
Yeah, exactly.
And then Cap gets him like, oh my god. Like, this is the part of the match where you store all three finishers and use them one after the other. Like, this is it. Oh, my God. That's one of the greatest moments I've ever seen in film. Oh,
I agree.
So good.
It was so good. I honestly thought, when I saw the hammer being picked up or being, like, levitating, whatever, I did not think it was Thor, but I didn't think it was Captain America either. I honestly thought it would be Captain Marvel, because they had teased earlier on in the movie, and I thought they handled her very well, considerably. I thought the movie was great, but there was no reason for her to be all in this movie. I thought that it was going to be her wielding the hammer, because earlier on in the movie, which was it was in the trailer, he got not his hammer, but the other one, I forgot what it, Windbreaker, I think, or what the Stormbreaker, I'm sorry, Windbreaker, it's Stormbreaker. When he calls Stormbreaker back at the headquarters, she doesn't even budge. So I'm like, oh god, please do not let this mean that she's going to pick up the hammer later, because she's like deemed worthy. And honestly, I thought it was going to be like a Roman Reigns Royal Rumble 2015 moment where she's gone for the entire fucking movie, and then she shows up at the end to beat Thanos with the hammer. I'm like, God, no. But yeah, it was Captain America instead. Amazing moment. They've been building this forever. It was such a cool moment. That got the biggest pop out of anything in the theater that I was in. That was an amazing, like, goosebumps-worthy moment. So that was sick.
Oh my God, I was hitting my friend Ben in the damn leg. I'm like, please, he just fucking picked up Thor's hammer. What the hell?
God, goosebumps every time. It was so cool. And then, as if that was not enough, Captain America, it's down to him all alone. Then you hear Sam in his ear saying, "On your left," which is a callback to, not Civil War, but Winter Soldier, the very first scene in that movie. And then he comes out of the portal. Or first, the Black Panther guys, and, Black Panther to his people, and then Falcon comes out. He flies out. Doctor Strange comes out. Wong, the Guardians, like, holy shit. And this is the scene that I've been waiting for ever since they first did that scene in the first Avengers, where you have the 360 shot of all of them, which was fucking amazing. And then I'm like, if they ever get to Infinity War / Endgame and they don't do this, it's a missed opportunity. And it obviously wasn't like a 360 shot. There's so many people. But they had everybody. Anyone that's still alive anyway. Including Howard the fucking Duck. Howard the Duck from the Guardians movies made a quick cameo in this movie. Blink and you missed it. I saw him in some of the replay that I saw on YouTube. He's in there. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Everybody's in line here. And then it gets real quiet as they're playing the Avengers theme. And he says, "Avengers assemble," and I got goosebumps and I almost screamed. That was my favorite part of the entire movie, and my favorite MCU movie probably of all time.
I think the biggest difference between the war that we saw in Infinity War and Endgame was the fact that it was literally night and day.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point.
It was during the daytime in Infinity War, where it seemed like, there's still that hope there of, like, look, it's a nice, beautiful day out, the sun is shining, it's a new day. Yes, it is a new day. And you always think, there's that hope of, Thanos won't get all 6 stones, and then he does, and then this, to me, this whole setting, the whole thing, literally, they fought in the ruins of the Avengers headquarters. Mm-hmm. This felt like the damn Endgame.
This was it.
Nothing else.
Yep.
And, we've watched wrestling for a long time, and we've witnessed a lot of returns and a lot of comebacks, but I don't know if there's anything that's going to top this.
I agree.
Holy jeez.
Damn,
it was just literal goosebumps. I was literally just saying every name that would pop out, just like a little kid, where I saw Black Panther and his people come out, and then I'm like, oh my God, there's Drax, oh, there's Spidey, oh, this, that. I felt like I was a kid just pointing out everyone's name, and then just the war started, and it was, oh my God, this, I'm willing to pay money to see this again. That's how you know it's good. I know everything that happens, but I'm willing to spend my hard-earned dollars to witness this all over again.
Yes.
I'm willing to sit through 3 hours if it means I can see this again.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I wonder if I can pay full ticket price for solely the last 20, 30 minutes alone, just for this one battle scene. God, it was incredible. Just the music, just the way that it was set up, the camera shots, everybody showing up. It's like seeing people that I know this person from work, I know this person from school, I know this is one of my family members, and then you see everyone that you know all in the same place at the same time. It's like all your worlds are colliding. It's like, holy shit, how does this person know that person? And then you see them all in the same place at the same time, you're like, this is fucking awesome. And that's exactly what happened here. And like you said, pure goosebumps, absolute chills. This was the best way to go out. And then it leads to, fast forward a little bit, and everyone gets a hold of the gauntlet, and Hawkeye gets it, and then Black Panther gets it. I thought it was great.
Oh, that was so cool how, almost everyone got a chance to hold it.
Yeah, Spider-Man.
That was so great.
Captain Marvel, everybody, which was super cool. Gamora and Star-Lord get their moment, which was cool too, kind of, before she kneed him in the nuts, which was funny. And then we get to Thanos and Iron Man. It comes back all the way back to the beginning here, to the very first Iron Man movie. He goes, "I am inevitable," snaps the fingers, wrong glove. He gives him the Iron Man glove instead, and it's instead Tony who has the Infinity Gauntlet on his hand, and says, "I am Iron Man." Snaps, all army disappears. Again, pure chills. What a fucking way to go out, and what a way to tie things back to the very first Iron Man movie. Just pure amazingness.
Oh my God. I remember when he had, or like once he had all 6 stones, and I'm thinking one of two things are going to happen. Either he's actually going to do it, and it's then like he's actually going to win, or someone's going to come and snatches snaps the stones or snaps the glove or like the gauntlet or whatever, and he snaps and nothing happens. I'm thinking, and in my mind, I'm thinking, like, did he take one of the stones? And like he turns his glove and none of them's there. I'm thinking, oh, holy shit! And then the camera cuts to Tony and he's got all of them. I'm thinking, I thought he would take one. I didn't think he'd take all 6.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit! And I let out like the biggest, oh my God, when he had them. Oh man, and just the chills of just him saying, "And I am Iron Man." And when he snapped, I snapped my own fingers too, because I'm like, "Yeah, that's right, you got him."
Fuck you, Thanos.
Yeah. Oh Jesus.
God.
It was just indescribable.
Mm-hmm.
Indescribable is how it is. It's just like, if you're gonna sit through 3 hours, this is what you're waiting for, right here.
This is how you reward the fan base that pays their money to see all these movies, specifically this one that is 3 hours in length. You are absolutely right. This is a hell of a way to close it out. And of course, that wasn't it. The ultimate sacrifice did lead to Iron Man's demise here, dying moments later, with Pepper Potts there, Spider-Man, everyone's there. Just a very emotional ending to the character that has lasted 11 years in the MCU. The character that started it all ends it all here. This end of an era, an actual end of an era. We're not talking Triple H, Undertaker shit from WrestleMania 28. Like an actual end of an era. Again, I didn't cry per se. I got a little teary-eyed. There were a lot of people in my theater that were just fucking bawling. And I almost laughed because there was some guy that was like hysterically crying, which was kind of funny. That's kind of why I didn't cry, because I was almost laughing. But it was still very emotional, and I don't blame anyone if they let out a tear, because this was such an emotional roller coaster. The funeral was great, just very well executed. You see the daughter, and even the boy from Iron Man 3 makes an appearance here. I had so many people asking me, who was that kid?
Yes, and it took me a second to figure out. I'm like, who is that guy?
Yep.
And then Ben nudges me and goes, "That's the kid from Iron Man 3. I'm like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Man, they really dug for this.
Yeah. Same actor, too. And that was 6 years ago, so that he's aged. Man, he was like a kid at the time. He must have been 10, 11 years old. Now he's like 17, 18, 19, whatever. So that was crazy. Sick. But yeah, everyone's there. Samuel L. Jackson makes an appearance. You can't have an Avengers movie without him, so he shows up, which was cool. Everyone's there, so yeah, just a hell of a way to go out. That's the end of his character's story arc, and Captain America goes back in time, stays in 1940s, comes back. I don't know how he, okay, so in this present storyline, did he just sit back and do nothing and then just arrived in the bench for this moment to happen? I don't know. But that kind of confused me. But putting that aside, I thought that was a great ending to his character, to go back in time and spend time with Peggy Carter and retire as Captain America, do his own thing, so that was sick too. But yeah, they really tied a lot of loose ends here. Now Falcon is the new Captain America, so that should be interesting if they follow on with that. But yeah, this was just the best possible ending I think I could have ever imagined, and so much more.
Oh, for sure. And it's like I said at the start, if you're a comic book fan, you're an MCU fan of any kind, and you don't go see this, you're fucking yourself over, essentially. I mean, really. I thought it was tremendous, and this is coming from a guy that still hasn't seen every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, I didn't, like, I wasn't at the point of, like, sweeping and sobbing or, like, uncontrollably.
Yeah.
But I felt every single emotion, and I felt every single pull. It truly is a masterpiece. Honestly, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember, like, once the movie was done, and I went out to the car, and I just sat there, and Ben's there in the back seat, and he goes, "Man, it's over." And I'm like, "Yeah, holy shit, it's like, that's
Mm-hmm.
it. It's done. It's
Mm-hmm.
over." I mean, like, yeah, we got Spider-Man coming out this summer, but for the time being, yeah, it's over.
Mm-hmm. This is it. Yeah, this was a hell of a way to close out an incredible era in not just MCU history, but like actual like cinematic history, because nothing like this will ever be duplicated. Like the same way the streak will never be done again with The Undertaker, like we will never see a string of 22 movies in 11 years all lead to one singular event, and all many different little events within that in this experience that is Endgame here. Just absolutely incredible. And again, it leads to many questions. Did the MCU peak here? Will we look back a few years from now and say, damn, the MCU was that was like the golden age of superhero movies,
for sure.
and will it ever be that good again?
Something else I just kind of realized as well. There's as many movies in the MCU now as there is in the streak. For matches.
Yes, there is. You are absolutely right. I did not even think about that. That is incredible.
Which is crazy to think about.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. And these movies will live on forever, and you can go back and enjoy them at any point you wish, and it all leads to this one, like I said, one, final destination, with that being Endgame, and it just pays off so many stories and leaves the door open for many more stories to be told with people like Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, his next movie comes out in a couple months, Black Widow if they want to do a prequel, the Guardians 3, which I'm probably looking forward to more than any other movie, because that's going to be amazing. But yeah, this was it. And again, we'll see. We will see if they will be able to top themselves. And the Russo brothers said they will not be doing another Marvel movie for the foreseeable future. If the time was right and the circumstances were correct too, then they might come back to do another movie for Marvel. So until then, we're not exactly sure. Not to say that Marvel needs them, but this was a lot of their doing as well, in addition to Kevin Feige. So I'm looking forward to seeing where they go from here. I thought it was well done and smart to not do a post-credit scene, which I know everyone has looked forward to in every Marvel movie since it started. But I think if there was any time
didn't need it.
No, absolutely. Did not need it.
Because you're not building it to anything else. And by the way, if you actually do stay for the entire credits, which I did, because, Marvel says one thing and means another.
Yeah.
If you actually stay for the whole credits, if you actually hear it at the very end, after the music is done, you can hear very faintly the sound of like a hammer clanging against metal.
Yep.
That's the sound of Tony Stark building the first Iron Man suit.
Mm-hmm. It's an incredible
For those
360
of you that have
moment.
no idea what it is.
Yeah, I know. I heard that, and I actually did not know what it was from the get-go, and then someone had told me, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I'm glad I stayed for it.
Yeah.
It's nothing notable. Like, it's not like, holy shit, what did I just say type of thing, but it was like, it was a cool way to honor the past.
Kind of a cool, like, this is what started it.
Exactly. This was really all about celebrating 11 years and not really necessarily building forward, which they're going to do anyway. It's not like they're going to announce or introduce the next big bad guy in the next movie, like, oh, here comes Thanos' son, or like whatever, in the next fucking Spider-Man Avengers movie. And if they do another Avengers movie, I've told this to other people, but they should wait like at least 5 to 10 years if they do another one. If ever, honestly,
100%.
I would end it here. And if they were going to do another one, they have to build another team, and it's going to take a long time. So that's my 2 cents on that. But this was, again, absolutely amazing. And now going forward, I am going to spend as much money as necessary to see this movie as many times as possible, to A, give these people my money, 2, to just relive the awesomeness that was Endgame and kind of pick up on things that I missed. I saw it a second time, I picked up on things I missed the first time, and now I just want to see it with other people to see their reactions to it, if they're fans of the MCU, which is cool too. But yeah, I think I saw Infinity War like 4 or 5 times in theaters, so I want to beat that record by seeing this another 3 or 4 times. But also, too, I want to give Endgame all the money in the world just to ensure, and I'm glad you feel the same way, because I saw your tweet this morning, Jim, and I'm like, thank God he agrees with me, because I didn't want to have him disagree. I want to give this...
Avatar, to me, is probably one of the most overrated films. I did go see it when it was in theaters, and I fell asleep for 10 minutes. I shit you not, I fell asleep for 10 minutes. And that's not me. And like, you know, I'm not talking shit about, like, the technology that was used and, like, the cinematography and everything. Yes, it's a beautiful movie. It's blue Pocahontas.
It is.
That's exactly what it is. It's blue CGI Pocahontas. And James Cameron last year before Infinity War, the guy who directed Avatar, you know, he said, like, oh, you know, I hope that we see superhero film burnout here pretty soon because, you know, I'm getting pretty tired of it. Yet he goes ahead and says, by the way, there's 3 sequels to Avatar coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
No one cares. No one cares.
Who gives a shit?
Years.
Fuck Avatar. Who gives a shit? God, I really fucking hope Endgame can beat Avatar. It's at, after this weekend, $1.2 billion worldwide, which is the fastest and most money made for an opening weekend ever, at beating out Avatar even. But Avatar was in theaters forever. It was in theaters for months.
It was. And Endgame will be in theaters forever. Captain Marvel's still in theaters.
Captain Marvel's still in theaters, that is right. And Captain Marvel made a lot of money too. And I think people tend to forget this. It's like, it's not, Avatar wasn't in theaters because, I mean, it was a very good movie, but it wasn't, and it is very overrated. I totally agree. Not to say that it's bad, I just don't give a shit. But I think people tend to forget, like, when these movies come out, Disney is having these movies, Infinity War and Endgame, come out at the very beginning of the summer. Last year, Infinity War would have likely made even more money than it did, had Deadpool not come out, like, fucking 2 weeks later. Deadpool came out.
Exactly.
You know, Deadpool just came out, Solo came out, The Incredibles came out, and Jurassic World came out. 4 of the biggest blockbusters of 2018.
It was literally just bang, bang, bang. It was like every week there was a new blockbuster hit coming out. And it's like, and right now Endgame kind of has, like, you know, they kind of rule the roost right now, because the next big hit coming out is, like, Detective Pikachu, and if you want to consider that maybe be a blockbuster hit, I'm going to see it because I'm excited.
I think that, it looks good,
It's Ryan Reynolds voicing Pikachu. Why wouldn't you be excited?
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, like, I highly doubt Detective Pikachu is going to crack $1 billion.
No.
If it does, okay. I shouldn't say I highly doubt it. Pokemon's is a really big franchise, really, really big brand. If it does crack $1 billion, I will be a smidge surprised. Yeah. But, anyways, Civil War hasn't even been out for a week, and it's almost halfway there to beating Avatar. So, yeah.
It's getting close.
Forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. I think Ryan Reynolds has something against these Avengers movies, because first it was Deadpool last year trying to kind of throw a wrench into things, and now it's fucking Detective Pikachu. And both were very good movies, and Deadpool was great. Pikachu looks very good too. But it's like, dude, Ryan Reynolds, if you just want to join the Avengers, just come out and say it. Like, you know, I know you want to be a part of the group, but, like, maybe in Guardians 3 you can show up. We'll see. But in all seriousness, though, I really hope they hold on to that number 1 spot. Pikachu, I forgot about. That should obviously do very well. I don't think it'll take away from Endgame. And then there's also Aladdin too, which I don't think will really make that much of a difference at all. I'm
not really all that excited for it.
Honestly,
I could take it or leave it.
Yeah, if I don't see it, I won't cry. But I might see it anyway because I like Aladdin. But we'll see. I think honestly, the only real competition that Endgame might have is probably Toy Story. And that's not out until mid-June.
Toy Story or The Lion King?
Lion King's out in July.
Yeah, so true.
It's got a couple months, so we'll see. But this is this is all Disney shit. So Disney rules the roast here with all of the movies in 2019. Between this, Toy Story, Lion King, and then Star Wars Episode 9 in December, which I honestly forgot Star Wars existed coming out of Endgame, but that's coming out too, and that should also be big. So they,
I kind of forgot about wrestling this weekend.
Yeah, right? What the fuck is wrestling?
felt kind of nice.
It was nice. Yeah, it was a nice break from what we usually know. But yeah, I've been on an Endgame binge, a Marvel binge, ever since I saw it on Thursday, and I'm hoping to see it a few more times going forward, and just rewatching all the other movies, like you said, even if I've already seen them multiple times. So we'll see. But yeah, this has been awesome, Jamie. Talking hour, all things Avengers Endgame. I'm sure I'll have you on here for the next big Avengers movie, which may not be for another 5 to 10 years, but we will guarantee these people that the next time there is another Avengers movie, I will have you here on the channel to break that down as well.
Oh, for sure. I'll be here.
Any closing thoughts on Endgame, MCU, anything else, Jamie, before we ride off into the sunset?
Fantastic film. See it. If you don't, you're out of your mind.
If you don't see this movie, you probably like Avatar, and if so, I don't want to talk to you, so go fuck yourself.
You are going to be that hipster dipshit friend that no one hangs out with.
Exactly. And in that case, you know, you're too far gone. There's no saving you now, so fuck off if that's the case. But in all seriousness, guys, thanks for tuning in. For Jamie Lee Mack, I'm Graham Jason Matthews. We'll catch your ass down the road.